Hi guys, welcome to this session on Microsoft Visio. In this module, I want to go through some of the basic concepts when you are creating a Visio diagram. So I'm on the first screen. When you click on New, you get an array of different options that you can select from. Different diagram types at the top here, and categories, different categories down the bottom there, and some more grouped categories down the bottom. You've got these sort of network, back, and then you can go to flowcharts. There's some flowchart examples, back, and so on and so on. So you can just go through these. You can search for templates. You can select by category, and then this gives you the main category types. And once you click into these, you get the same sort of thing. Personal only appears if you've done templates. If you save a template, you'll get things appearing in personal, which I've got some there. But the default position is Office, and then you can search for Office online. So I'm going to start off with a basic diagram. So if I click on that and then create the basic diagram, what you get in Visio is down the left hand side you get a series of stencils with a search area at the top and options there to go and get other stencils from other diagrams, which initially when you first come into Visio you're not going to be really familiar with any of these, but you can actually add additional stencils to this list. If I just click off that, so in this particular diagram, the basic one, you've got this stencil, decorative shapes, arrow shapes, and then basic and quick shapes. So I'll leave it on basic. Now normally you don't have this on the right hand side, I'll just get rid of that, but that's just a pain that you can have if you so wish. Now to use Visio, you basically just select the type of shape that you want. So I'm going to pick a square, and it says a square and it is a square. It doesn't suddenly become a rectangle or a different shape by increasing. It's always going to be a square. So if you wanted that to be a rectangle, you'd have to bring on a rectangle shape, and then that will always be a rectangle. Now one of the biggest problems I think people have with Visio is connecting them up, connecting shapes together. So normally this is just a diagram that you might not want to connect shapes together. You can see as I'm resizing these with these little arrows how you get these guides appearing on the screen. As soon as you've got your mouse down, it's telling you whether you're lined up or not, which is quite a cool little feature. So these two are now lined up. If I want to connect these, across the top on the Home tab, you have a series of tools in this little block. Pointer tool is what I've got on the screen now. Connector underneath will then allow me to connect these two together. So you see as I move across these shapes, you get these little connector points going green, and the whole shape goes green if I move into the middle. Now there's two things going to happen here. If I go from a connector point, I'll get that to go green again, and then go to another point, that is called a point-to-point connector. And if I just click this off, you have to click this off, otherwise you'll be drawing lines everywhere. Back onto the pointer tool. That means that that is always going to be connected from that point to that point, no matter where I move that shape. So it's a point-to-point connector. And if I put it back at the top and just delete that one, and then do the other type of connector, which is a shape-to-shape, which is when the whole thing goes green, I don't need to click on a point, and the whole thing on this one's gone green. That's called a shape-to-shape connector. If I get rid of that, just move this around underneath, the arrows just snap to the closest point, and it does not stay at the initial point that it was looking at or towards. So it's not staying there. Whichever is the closest, it's going to snap to. That is a shape-to-shape connector. Now if I just move that in a little bit. Now if you want to draw your own shapes, there is a little tool here where you can actually draw a shape. I'll just draw a rectangle. Now on this, if I go connector from that point, now I've got the option of shape to shape. Let go of that one, click off, move this, so it sticks, it does exactly the same there. However, there is no points on that. If I delete that one off, go back onto this one, so I'll go from that point, there is no connection points like there is there, or on this one. You can see these snapping into position because you've just drawn a shape. Now if you just want a rectangle, you don't really need to draw a rectangle from there. I'll just delete this off actually, because you've got a rectangle in the stencil. You don't need to draw a rectangle. You're just doing an extra step. Now if you do want to put connector points on that rectangle, you can actually use this little cross symbol. If you click that down so it's on, move on to the shape, you see this that little cross there. Hold your control key down and then you should be able to click where you want the connection to be. Now it's a bit of a fiddle this to get this in the right place. So if I just click there we go, I want it there. You see the little square or orange, red, whatever colour that is, connector point. I should be able to go from that point now to this shape and then click off that, and then you should be able to move that around and it sticks on there. There's absolutely no point in doing that if you just want a simple rectangle. Where that would be of use is if you wanted more than one connector point on a shape. So say this is a rectangle. Let me get rid of some of these lines. Click on that one, delete, get rid of that one, delete. So on a normal shape, so this shape, that's a square, I'll do the rectangle, it makes more sense I think. So on a normal rectangle, you've just got the four connections, so 1, 2, 3, 4 around the outside and one in the middle. Now if I want to have more than that, I would have to put extra points on. So that's where this would come in. So if I just do this, if I click that down again and hold the control key down, see the little marker, let's put one on there and one on there. I'm just doing a few, I'll do, I think. Pointer tool back on. So now I've got the option, if I want, to go from any of these points to that shape, and then I can have it going on to, is that the rectangle? I'll go into that top one, like so. Coming out of this, yeah. So I've picked the wrong shape, so I'll pick a different shape, one that's already got the connections on. Pick that one up again, just take it across, and then I've got another one at the bottom there, and there's one there, isn't there? So you can see what you can do here. You can have multiple connection points by using this little cross and your control key. The control key is quite key. You also need to have the shape that you're going to put it on selected so it's active, and then you can have multiple lines coming off one side of one shape. So I'm just going to get rid of all of this for now and just bring one more shape on. I'll just bring a square on. Now if you want to type a title or something like that in there, you just basically type and it goes into the center of that box. If you don't want it to be in the center, you've got some tools up here under paragraph where you can move that up to the top, left, etc, etc. And then the other tool that I haven't mentioned in this little group is text and this little symbol. This allows you to move the text box off the shape. So if I click that tool, what that will allow me to do is to move Steve, which has now disappeared because the font's white. If I click on, if I can get on it, I should be able to change the font. In fact, I'll do undo and I'll change the font first. Pointer tool on, Steve black, off black. So then now go back onto this, get this little tool, slide this off, missed, pointer. That's the symbol I need, that big cross. Then I can move it off so you can see. Now if I put the pointer tool back on, this is still attached to this box, but it's sort of offset. It's like a bit of an acetate moved off. Now normally every shape that you bring on, if I bring another one on, has a text box in the middle, or formatted so it's in the middle. But you can add other text boxes if you so wish by using that tool, text, and then you can put text in there. But then don't make the same mistake as drawing with a rectangle and then start doing fills, you know, making it a different color and doing the line, because all this is just extra stuff that you're doing where you didn't need to do. If I go and change the line thickness on that one, I don't need to do that with this drawn shape because I could have done all that on one of these. You just bring this on and then do all the changing of colors and stuff like that from a preset formatted shape. you know, and I can do line effects. I can have dashes around it if I want, like so. Terrible color scheme, but you get the idea. And in the effects, you've got all this sort of stuff. Shadows, you can put shadows on these boxes if you want. You can see the sort of live preview underneath. If I just move that over here a bit, you probably see it better. So shadow, you see the things sort of changing as I'm moving it around. I'll click on that one there. You can see the shadow there. And then once you've done the shadow, you've got shadow options where you can go in there and play around a little bit more with like the shadow color, whatever you want, the transparency. Make it a bit more visible, moving the transparency across, and you've got the size of it and all these sort of tools, and whether you want it blurred or not, and whatever angle you want it at. Now, and then distance, don't need to mess about with that. But those are all tools that you can use through these little styles that you've got there. So other effects, you've got all this sort of stuff that's pretty similar and pretty standard throughout Microsoft stuff. Whether you're going to do this in a basic diagram, it's totally up to you. So that's basically how you create shapes and connect shapes. And you can also group shapes. Didn't do that. Let's just do that. If I just bring these two on, I'll just change one color, green. If I highlight these two shapes, I want them to be a group. I can click on group, and then that becomes a shape on its own. These two are now a shape. So grouping and ungrouping is the same as what it is in Word and all the other Microsoft products. Now I'm going to create a second diagram. So that's the basics. Now let's have a look at another diagram. So File, and I want a flowchart, so I'll go for that one. And I want a blank one, Create. Now when you create a flowchart, this diagram is slightly more formatted and structured, and I'm going to get rid of that. Now what you've got here is the basic flow chart stencils. And let's start this off. So now before I do that, I'm going to activate the connector. Once you activate the connector tool, this will automatically connect up as you drag these shapes on. So if I go for start and finish and then a process, the connector tool automatically goes on there, a decision, connector tool again, and a process. Now if I want this to come down, you notice there's these little options here. I can come down using this, and another one, decision, and then using the arrow like so, and finally an end. Now I better do a process and then an end. So it's very quick, and then knock that off. Very quick to create a flowchart using Microsoft Visio. And if these need to connect back up, connector tool, let's say it goes from there back to that process, and this one will go from there back to that process. So they need to do something in there to make that correct, and then pointer tool off, and there you go. Like I said, you can just start by typing in there and just put whatever information you want to go in there. Now in terms of titles and formatting and things like that, if you go to the design tab, you've got this background feature or borders as well. So go for background first, and I'll just put this little world on. Everybody likes the little world. What that does is put a background page down here which is attached to this page, page 1. So I can't actually type on that page unless I click onto it, and then now I'm on that page. So if I wanted, for example, to change the color of that, maybe the fill color I want to be red. That's a bit much, but you get the idea. So now the background's red. And if I go into page setup, so if I go back onto design, you've got page setup. You can go into there, and it will tell you, if you go into page properties, page 1, which hasn't got a name, but you can name it. So I'll call it flowchart, and it's got a background page of this one, v background 1, which is great. Okay, so that's one way of changing it. I could have double clicked down there and changed it, but you get the idea there. Now in terms of titles, so I'm still on the front page. If I want titles, you've got this option here to bring in some titles, lots of different styles of titles. I'll pick on that one, and now you see that sits in the background as well. If I go to the background page, that's where that is. So at the minute I've got two options here. I either move this down or I'll go into the background and move that up. So I think I'll try the background and move that up. So can I move it up? It's not letting me move it up, so that's not an option. Let's just call this flowchart. So maybe I pick a different style, but I want to move that up, and it's not letting me because it's obviously set at the top of the page. I can't even move anything, so these properties are locked. So back to the diagram. Now what I need to do here is try Control A, that selects everything, and let's see if I can move it down a little bit. And it has, but if I click off that, I can just maybe bring this one up, and I'm using my arrow keys to bring this bottom one up a bit and maybe save a bit of space. I don't want to go into a second page. As long as everything's still lined up, that's okay, because some of these lines are quite big, to be fair. And you can select more than one shape and move them as a group as well, just make sure that lines up like so. So that's the background page and a title page with the date and time on it and the title you put on it, but you have to do that on the background itself. You can create your own pages by just going plus page 2. Now page 2 hasn't got a background attached to it. This is the background, so what you have to do is just go into page setup, and you can say page 2 needs a background of the same background as the other one. Okay. And then that will come through onto page 2. So once you've created a background, that's what you need to do. Any page that you insert, you will have to get it to attach to the background. Now what you'd normally have in a background, apart from if you want the word, fine, but normally you would have things like your company information, your logo, making sure that it's not intrusive like this one was a little bit. And you can create your own background page. You don't have to use this background page. If I just delete that, for example, so we haven't got a background page, yes, gone, and then create my own background page. So when I do this one, I'll go and into page setup and tell the computer that this is a background page, and I'll call it logo so you get the idea. It's a logo. Okay, and I now do my logo on this page. So I'm not going to do a logo, I'm just going to bring a process box on and type my company in there so you can see how it works. Like so. That is all that I'm going to do, and whatever your logo is or any branding you want to put on there, you can do. Now page 2 hasn't got that attached, and now that has the first page. So you do need to go into page setup. So this needs to have a background page called logo, and so does page 2. Page setup, background page called logo. Okay, and then that comes through. And on that front page as well, so that's come through onto both pages. So that's how you do that. Pages. So inside of all of these shapes, as well as typing on the front, if I right click on a shape, you've got this link here that says data, shape data, and it'll give you, in this case, some pre-formatted fields that you can fill in, and this stuff you can then print off or send into Excel, for example, if you want to create a report on it. And you can add extra things if you so wish. So if I just put a cost at the top there, 200 and whatever. Now if you want to add extra things, you can right click again and just go into data and then define shape data, and then you might want to come down the bottom and have a look at the bottom. We've got status is the last thing, but let's go new and let's call this department or dept, and you've got the option of having it as a string or any of these formats. Don't need a default value, and I don't need a prompt for this one, and just click OK to that, and then that comes up there and you can type in there sales, and then that information is stored for later use if you so wish. Now I'm not recommending that you do that manually in every shape. There is a way to do that once, and then every shape will carry that same data type across. I've done another video for that, so if you have a look through the playlist you'll see that, how to add shape data. So basically that's all I want to talk about in this little session. It's just a quick overview of how to get going with Microsoft Visio, basic diagrams, some of the connection issues, how to create your own connections, and then a quick flowchart looking at shape data. We've also looked at the titles, borders and background pages, and had a little play around with those. So hopefully that was of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.